Hello, hello! You are listening to CPA Career Path Podcast with Rosie Flaherty, CPA MSA. This is episode number 19. We continue the CPA journey with Anup Mehta, an immediate past chair of AI CPAs.
Yeah, you did mention that you just talked to a college yesterday for the master degree group. I'm just curious, what's your opinion about having the CPA license and having the master degree? Should people have both, or should people just have CPA license only, or should they just have the master degree only?
Well, I mean, for me, most of the students that I've talked to are doing their master's program to getting that 150 credits, right? In that manner. I don't know. I've only come across only a few people that did the 150 but didn't do the master's. They did it, just to get the 150 to be able to get the licensure. So. I always look at things as an and. I never look at it as an or. You do this or you do that. I said, if you can do both, do both. I mean, do the master's degree if you want to do that. Absolutely. And it's about lifelong learning, it's about continual learning, upskilling, and you not stopping just because you got a CPA that you can stop. Hey, I don't have to study anymore. That's furthest from the truth, right? I mean, our profession is evolving every single day, and today it's evolving faster than ever it has. And it's we say what the pace of change will never be as slow as it is today, which means it's getting faster and faster and faster. So I like the and, meaning, don't limit yourself from whether I should do a CPA or a MBA or masters in taxation or whatnot. I said, if you can do both, do both. It just makes you more marketable. It just gives you more options to do things in the future. And one of the things that I think it's important, and I truly believe that CPA is that foundation that will allow people to do whatever they want to do. So I think if they can do both, I think they should do both.
I noticed that some people, they do not choose the master degree route because of financial issues. Because getting a master degree sometimes is quite pricey comparing with
Yeah.
just getting credits from community college classes to just get to 150 degrees. So talking about
Right.
the 150 degrees, people saying that maybe students don't need to have 150 degrees to sit for the CPA exam. Some people say that you should have 150 degrees to be qualified to sit for the CPA exam. And as of the immediate past chair of AI CPA, what do you think about this?
I think the 150, you have to go back in history, right? And one of the reasons I think the 150 came about was that, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, there was a tremendous push from firms that as students were coming out, they just felt they weren't as prepared. And I think the 150 came about as outcome of that. Um, One of the things that's really critical for us is and especially today's world. Technology is everywhere. Technology is a huge part of our profession. So you need that accounting, but you also need a lot of coursework in technology, data analytics, and we also need to emphasize and focus on soft skills, communication, whether it be critical thinking, and all of those things. I think all those skill sets are important. Um, but you're also looking for an individual that's kind of well rounded. And one of the things I get asked a lot is why don't we define what those additional 30 hours should be? And I think part of it is we want flexibility. We want people to be able to say, well, I did my degree in X, and now I don't feel I can, you know, I want to do that. I really want to go pursue accounting. Well, we wanted them to be able to shift their career path. So the more we define those additional 30 credit hours, I think that limits uh, the opportunities for people. But people, and I will tell you, I mean, I wasn't one of those that, back in the '80s, we still had 120 credits, so I did. But you know, even though I did the 120, got my CPA, it was for me. It was continual learning. I mean, I learned so much, and it was constant learning for me. And I'm hoping that fits into that 150 model. And when the students are coming out and get their licensure, they're a little bit more complete individuals. So they have some of those soft skills that are already built in. For me, soft skills was, I learned those joining organizations, volunteering my time. So those skill sets were developed by me being heavily involved in different organizations. And I'm hoping that the students today would try to get that during their, school years.
When did you start volunteering for the CPA societies?
Well, I started, I mean, there are two things volunteering. Actually, volunteering, I started early age. My dad was very much active in community. So I was pretty active in our local community organizations. And then in college, I joined, I think it was the International Student Council. I was also part of Indian Student Association. So I worked with administrators on the campus. So I volunteered my time there. So the volunteering part came early on, and a large part because I saw my dad. He was, very active in the community. But then, from a profession standpoint, I got involved right after I passed my CPA exam. So first thing I did was I joined the Maryland Association of CPAs. Very passionate about the MACPA, a great organization. I learned a lot. I created a lot. I mean, made a lot of friends. So, and I'll be honest, the reason I joined MACPA was because I know now I had to do my CPEs, continual professional education, on an annual basis. And I thought if I joined, I could get a discount on the courses, right? So that's why I joined that. And it was my first conference that I attended, and it was called a government contracting conference. And at work, that's kind of what we do. We're a government contractor. We support NASA and some of the other civilian agencies. So I thought, well, let me go to this conference. Let's see. And my whole motivation for attending the conference was to get my 8 hours of CPE. I could be there, get my 8 hours of CPE, and that would be good. So I remember sitting in the conference room. I was sitting way in the back, all the way at the last row, and I was just thinking, well, I just need to be physically here, and whether I learned something, no, that's not wasn't the important part. So that was my thinking. Okay, I will admit that. Um, but you know what? I learned a lot during that conference. So then what happened was at the end of the conference, I went up to a gentleman. He was the chair of the committee who put the conference together. And I asked him, hey, you guys did a great job with this. How do I get involved? And his response was just this simple. He said, well, just come to the next meeting if you want. And he gave me the addresses where they met. And I said, okay. And next meeting, they met every month. And next meeting, I just showed up. And, the people were very receptive, and they started to include me in the conversations. And literally, that's how it started. And I tell that story. I said, sometimes it's that simple. You can get involved just by raising your hand and said, how do I help? And that's exactly how it happened. And then a few years later, they asked me to chair the committee. And then a few years went by. I got a call from the Maryland Association of CPAs. They asked if I was consider a board seat because there was an opening on the board for 6 months, and I said yeah. And that was the other thing that I think it's important. There are lots of opportunities, and I think our profession offers a lot of opportunities. But if you don't take advantage of them, then you're not doing your self service, right? So for me, every opportunity that presented itself, I said, sure, I'll do it. Sure, I'll do it. And that's how it happened. So I got involved a little bit more in the Maryland Association of CPAs. Then a few years later, they asked me to join the executive committee to become the chair then. And then in 2013, I became chair. And that was also the time that I got exposed to AICPA. So I was like the state representative on the council, AICPA council. And I remember my first council meeting, AICPA council meeting, I was just blown away. I mean, it was like, I'm just not dealing with people from Maryland. I'm dealing with people from across the country. And same thing that I remember when I attended that first conference, how welcoming people were. That committee that I joined, how welcoming the people were. And same thing I found when I attended the council meeting, AICP council meeting. Everybody was so welcoming. I met a few people. There were a few people that came up to me because they hadn't seen me probably before, just wanted to introduce themselves and say hello. And I really cherished that. I really valued that. And I think that's what we need to do as a profession. We need to make sure that we're continuing to lend a helping hand to the people that are just, just coming into the profession. They don't, know where to go, what to do, and just seeing a friendly face and just welcoming, it goes a long way. So I really, really appreciated that, and I also found out how much I didn't know about the profession. Sometimes we focus too everything on what we know, but we don't focus on what we don't know. But let me tell you something. When I walked into that room and started to hear some of those presentations, especially the first one is usually a professional issues update that Barry Melanson does, and he's going through it. I was just in awe. I said, "Oh my God, I didn't know any of this stuff." But you have a new appreciation for the profession, and I tell you, it was just phenomenal for me to be on that council and attend those. I look forward to going to those council meetings because every time I walked away with, I learned something. And they had some fantastic speakers come in, not just about accounting, but about leadership and things like that. And so I cherished, like I said, I really look forward to going to council meetings every single time.
Wow. Hold on. So if I put everything in the timeline, so you turn 30 and then you pass the CPA exam. At the same time, you just have the newborn baby, and then you start volunteering, and then you start more involving with the state society. How can
Yeah.
you find time with a newborn baby? It's consume you and your wife a lot of time. At the same time, your work with the CPA, I expect you will have more work because now you have the license and also maybe higher raise for salary. So expect more work and then more volunteering. How did you find your time at that moment?
Well, I think, Rosie, I think you create time. I mean, I think I look back in my early days in volunteering, right, in high school and college and all that, and I don't think I put in a lot of effort or a lot of time. Just and sometimes remember that saying. I think it's if you want to get something done, give it to somebody who's the busiest, right? Who because they can get it done somehow. And I think part of it was that I found time because, and it made me happy. Volunteering made me happy. And so I've always managed to figure out and find time to be able to do that. And yes, it requires you juggling. You got family, you got work, you got volunteering, and all of those things. And sometimes that's people have this understanding. Oh my God, it's going to take up so much of my time if I volunteer, if I say yes to something. It really doesn't. It really doesn't. It's about balancing, and I have a lot of friends, so I do a lot of things with my friends. So that was the other thing, right? Trying to find time to be able to spend time with friends and the families and all of that. But you figure out a way to do it. You figure out a way to do it, and you figure out that the volunteering doesn't take as much as time as you think it does.
I have to I had to think about that comment because talking about my volunteering, I have to turn some opportunity away because I cannot find my time. And I feel so bad. And I talk to people and say, you should take it, you should take it. But being a board member of the state society, it requires a lot of traveling, require a lot of commitment more than just the local chapter that you involve in. So I'm
Yeah.
just wondering if there are any volunteering opportunities that you had to turn away because you couldn't find the time.
Yeah, I mean, I probably have only. I mean, it was just a matter of the timing, And I never say no. I don't want to do that because I also volunteered for. There's an organization called Maryland Space Business Roundtable. That's that was work related, and I volunteered there as well. In fact, I was on their board, and I actually became president for 2 years. But you find the time, you balance, and I think what it was like the volunteering time for Maryland Associated CPAs, MACPA. Early on, they would tell me, Anoop, if you can't do something, don't worry, we got your back. And I think that's the key thing. I think all these organizations, they understand you have a life. You got all these things going on, and they appreciate any time that you could devote to them. So I know that if there was some meeting that I couldn't attend for one thing or the other because it was family, it was work or something, I knew the CPA would have my back, and they would figure it out. They said, "Don't worry about it. We got it. We got it covered." You'll find that I think most organizations are like, or most organizations that work well with the board and their leadership team, volunteer leadership team, they figure out how to manage this thing because they know that this is not the only thing. Now, except for the last year and a half as chair of the ICPA, I can tell you that was a full time job. It was. I mean, I enjoyed every minute of it, but that I couldn't do anything other than that, and loved every minute of it though.
So talking about being the past chair, can you share the things that you did during the time you were the AICPA chair from 2022 to 2023?
Well, my passion was students. We know we've got a pipeline issue, so one of my platform was getting a chance to talk to as many students as I could, visiting high schools, colleges, and things like. And I didn't set out that I was going to do this many or this many. I just said I want to do that. So I started going to one or two campuses, and then people found out, and then I started getting invited. And it turns out that I've been to and spoke to close to students from 27 different colleges and universities. And yesterday also, well, that's my second visit, so I don't count that as another college visit. But even though it was a college visit, it's the same school I visited last year. So they wanted me to come back and speak to the Master's of Accounting program students, which I did. So I spoke to now close to probably 4,900 students.
Wow. So
Yeah.
you mainly focus on speaking to students about the CPA career, about opportunities.
Yeah. So if I talk to high school students, I spoke about the profession. The same thing with the first year, second year college students who hadn't decided what to do. I talked to them about the profession, accounting profession, what the opportunities were, what they can do with an accounting degree. Just get them interested in accounting. If there were like juniors, seniors, and master students who are already accounting majors who are going to accounting, I spoke a lot about the importance of passing the CPA exam, sitting for the CPA exam, because we heard there's a large percent of students that do the accounting, get the accounting degree, but don't sit for the CPA exam. So those students, I would talk to them about the importance of sitting for the CPA exam. And then I would, of course, talk a little bit about leadership and what it means to be a CPA. Talk a lot about trust, that how important trust is in our profession, and the things that they have to do to maintain that trust. All of those things are things that I spoke to students about, and I'm excited and proud that I know I've convinced a few people to go into accounting, and those that did do accounting, few people that convinced them to actually sit for the CPA exam. I get a lot of text messages, and I get a lot of emails and things like that, and LinkedIn requests. In fact, all the students that I interacted with, those 48, 4,900, I've actually given out my cell phone number. I've given out my personal email, that they can call me. They can text me anytime if they want to talk about something. And I get a request every day. Somebody or the other sends me a text, and I always make sure I respond back. Somebody will ask me, "Hey, I'm not doing well in accounting. I've had this," and I would respond back, "Hey, I visited your college. I know this so and so professor. I talked to that. You should go talk to them. Communicate what you're struggling with, and I know they will help you." And then I'll get an email back or a message back saying, "Hey, guess what? I got a B on this exam." I mean, things like that. And then I got it. Just recently, I met a young lady in Florida. She didn't think she would ever sit for the CPA exam, and we chatted for about 20 minutes in the office. I gave her all the options that she would have. Actually, it was right before our council meeting. She texted me. She said that she made a decision that she's going to take some time off and to study for the exam. Things like that. I mean, I get a lot of. The key is, I mean, I do respond back to all of them. That's another young lady. I got a request from India, a young lady that I met in India during my visit. She asked me about what are the opportunities. Should she do chartered accountant, or should she do USCPA? And I just gave her all the options available to her, and things like that. I mean, people just contact me, students contact me, and I'm happy to interact with them any way I can.
I feel that way. I still remember when I emailed you, you respond back to my email really quick. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then I think you were in London at that time and you respond to my email. And I was like, wow, he's so busy, but he still made time to get back to me. So that's very amazing. So you did mention about the trust. Building the trust at the workplace, sometimes it takes a lot of work or a lot of time and effort to do it. And you work at one place for almost 42 years. Can you share with me or with our audience how you build the trust from very, very beginning when you start a job to the point that you become the president of the...
Yeah, so I started this job as an intern as I was pursuing my undergrad. So I was still in school. So the company SSAI, Science System Application, was one of my dad's clients. And my dad knew this gentleman who was the owner and president of the company. And it was a two-person company when I joined. There was him and another employee. And, as I said, we do a lot of work with NASA. So my dad got me the job, and I tell kids there's nothing wrong with getting your parents getting you a job. So my dad did get me that job, and he had just opened up an office. He was working out of his basement prior to that. So I just opened up an office, and all he needed was somebody that could, be there, answer phone calls, do some typing, take care of office chores, make coffee in the morning, things like that. So I said, well, I could do that. um, and that's really how it started as an intern. Summer, it was supposed to be a summer job. And then, when I went back to school in the fall, um, he asked me if I wanted to stay on. I can work part time after school, and I said, yeah. I mean, and part of the reason is I really enjoyed the people that I was working with, and it felt good because we had to hire a couple more people after that. Um, and by the time I graduated, the company had grown to about 20, 25 people. And I decided, and the owner asked me if I wanted to continue working full time because now, we had about 20, 25 employees and needed full time support. And I said, absolutely. And actually, and the main reason was first, I love the people that I work with. And second, I thought we were doing some, you know, purposeful work, meaning studying the environment, long-term weather predictions, climate change, looking out and studying our wonderful blue planet that we live on. So that excited me, and like I said, that was part of the reason that I decided to stay even though I was studying for the CP exam, and I didn't have inclination that I would be leaving that job as I did when I started college. I said, I'm going to get my CP, get my degree, get my CPA, and then join the Big Eight back then. But working with the company for a few years, working with the people, working for what we did for the society, those attracted me, and that's kind of kept me there for a very long time.
So this company is not public company. It's
Yeah.
not like public accounting. It is private. So right
Yes.
after you graduate, you go straight to the private company to work on this company that you have been working on the whole time you were in college, right?
Right. So it was about 3 years before, as 3 years earlier had started, um, and then 3 years later I graduated from college, and so I had already put in a couple of years over there, and then the company had grown from that two-person when I started to about 20, 25 by the time I graduated.
So how did you feel about each time you get promoted within the same company?
Well, it was. I mean, it was great. Then I think one of my titles was finance manager, and then there were multiple titles that I probably got that I don't even remember now. I do remember becoming VP of finance and administration, becoming a CFO. So those were along the way, and I think it's partly because the responsibilities continue to grow as the company grew, right? And then I had to learn about the human resources. I had to learn about contracts. I had to learn about, of course, finance, accounting. I kind of knew that. I learned a lot about contracts, and then human resources was. In fact, I think we were probably about 200-person company before we hired our first human resource manager. So I was kind of doing all of that, and just learning on the job, and picking up literature, picking up articles, and reading up books about human resources. Kind of got myself, being able to do that job as well. So you kind of get to do so many different things, and then contracts. I didn't know anything about contracts, government contracts, but you learn. I had great people people that taught me. Even our customers, NASA. There were people at NASA that kind of took me under their wing and showed me all the good, all the things and the nuances of the contracts, and I learned a lot from them. But going back to, I think I said this earlier, there are so many people in just not in our profession, but in the community that really do care and they want to help. But not many people take advantage of it. And I still remember this comment that was made. He was a government official, contract manager there, procurement manager, they call him. And uh, and I used to, after he retired from NASA, we still met up. I used to tell him that his name is Brad. I said, Brad, I enjoyed, coming to you, and you would actually sit down and answer my questions and teach me some of these things, and I really appreciated that. And he said, I just didn't do it for you. I did it for everybody, but nobody took advantage of it. You actually took advantage of it. And that's the point I keep making to people, that there are so many people that really do want to help. But if we're not willing to accept that help, you know, there's not a whole lot that can be done, right? But so I took advantage of the opportunities that were given to me. If somebody said, "Can I help you in some way?" I would take advantage of that. I said, "Hey, yeah, can you teach me a little bit about this? Can you help me with a little bit about this?" And there were people willing to do that.